All right, let's talk about Patrick Mahomes continuing his MVP campaign. I thought he was really good in this game. There were a couple issues early on. We'll talk about the picks that happened early on in this game. But you look at like the drive by drive stats. So the first two drives were interceptions. The third drive was a touchdown, and then the end of the first half. And then you had three more touchdowns in a row, followed by a punt and the end of the game. So really, once they stopped beating themselves, they were perfect. One thing they did really well, let's give a shout out to Andy Reid in this game and just the offensive coaching staff as a whole. A lot of stuff like this was happening where it's a 2nd down and 9, zone coverage that they're going up against. First, you're going to have it's Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce kind of crossing each other's pathway right here. So again, that's a lot you have to pay attention to if you're the Commanders, making sure that you can all get to the right spot, cover the right guy. On top of this, Worthy is going to be in motion, going from the offense's left to the offense's right, so that's also something that's going to be happening. And when Mahomes takes a snap, he's going to look downfield and realize, hey, nobody picked up number 1. And again, Mahomes, one of his underrated superpowers is how well he reads the field. I get it, this looks easy now, but trust me, I mean, this is not your first read. Being able to notice it quickly, like, the fact that he always notices this is kind of, the superpower, right? But ultimately, it's bad defense. That's the first thing you have to say. Mahomes makes the throw, Worthy makes the grab. I mean, the Commanders have just struggled defensively all season, and there was really no exception in this game, even though they had a couple turnovers early on to make it seem like they were competitive. And hey, they made those turnovers, right? But still. And it's easy to simply just blame the defense. But, again, for the Chiefs, you do a lot of this stuff where you have guys moving in motion and going to different spots, and you just generate more blown coverages, right? The defense has to communicate more. Yes, on this specific play, you blame the defense, but if you run these, 40 plays in a game, well, you're going to get a blown coverage at some point. Let's talk about the 2 interceptions from Mahomes. Both of the first 2 drives ended in interceptions. This one was a 3rd down and 10. And to be honest, this was just a bad play from Mahomes. I don't really know what he was thinking here, where it's a one-on-one matchup. Marshawn Lattimore against Hollywood Brown. And listen, looking in this direction is not a bad idea because Lattimore has just not played well in this Dan Quinn scheme. I think he's a bad scheme fit, to be honest. That trade has just not worked out for them. But you see on this play, Lattimore is hanging with Hollywood Brown, and a lot of people said, I think on the broadcast, they said Mahomes is maybe trying for a back shoulder throw, but you're on the hash marks on the opposite side of the field. That's a horrible angle to try a back shoulder throw, especially with a guy in Brown who just isn't necessarily known for those types of contested catches. In Lattimore, again, his issue is he keeps getting burned down the field, but here he's hanging with Brown, so throwing up a back shoulder and relying on your receiver's ball skills against a corner who has great ball skills, it's just a mistake. Because of that, it ends up getting picked. Great play from Lattimore, right? Really good defensive play. But again, like Lattimore, even at this point in his career, can still make those types of plays. You don't want to give him that opportunity. The other pick, though, was just completely, it was an error by Kelce, right? Right in Kelce's hands, drops it, goes in the air. Bobby Wagner, Johnny on the spot, gets the pick. Again, that's one of those, it'll count on the stat sheet, but ultimately, really, not Mahomes' fault. So, to me, Mahomes had the one mistake, and other than that, was virtually perfect. Again, there were plays like this where it's zone coverage, and, again, you have a good scheme where the 2 wide receivers towards the offense's right will be running deep routes going over the middle. Kelce, who's lined up as a tight end, will then go into the gap that has hopefully been cleared out from those 2 routes. Again, people always wonder, how do you lose Kelce? Well, again, it is difficult. You should know as a defense, like 87 is not your usual tight end. Pay more attention to him. But here, again, there's kind of a lack of communication by the Commanders down the field. Mahomes, I mean, this is an easy throw for Mahomes, right? Look at how clean the pocket is. Really good pass protection. When he makes a throw downfield, Kelce is wide open. And to be honest, these were just the plays that weren't really there last year, right? I mean, a lot of people were saying, what's the difference between Mahomes this year and last year? To me, I mean, I was someone who was actually very pro Mahomes last year, as weird as that sounds, because everyone's pro Mahomes in terms of his play on the field. But I felt like he was playing at just as high of a level, but just the situation around him, there wasn't these easy throws. Now that there is, we're seeing him put up MVP numbers again. There were also some plays like this. So what's going to happen on this one is it's a 1st down and 10, still 7-7 at this point, early on in the 3rd quarter. Mahomes is going to take the snap, and Commanders send a decent chunk of defenders. It's kind of weird how they do this, where since it's man coverage, essentially the way it works is they send a decent amount of defenders to rush the passer, but then if your guy who you're supposed to cover is blocking, well, you want to take that player out of the game, right, out of the play. So you see Kelsey, he has a Washington defender who's on him at this point, and essentially what's going to happen is this Commander's defender is going to kind of say, hey, Mahomes doesn't see me. I kind of, if I can get around Kelsey, I could just get to the quarterback. So watch how he kind of drifts more over the middle, and Kelsey reads this. And I mean, again, I don't know if Kelsey just was at first going to take the play off, but then saw that there was an opening or what, because he did kind of stop for a second, which created this. But now that there's an opening, he's going to try and run a route. What's crazy to me about this play is I don't know why Mahomes thinks to look towards Kelsey. Like, I don't know why that comes into his brain, because Kelsey's not running a route on this play. But watch him eventually look over there and flips it to Kelsey, and look at how much room there is for Kelsey to run. Again, a play that I'm sure Mahomes haters will say, well, all he did was, flip it to a guy who ran 40 yards down the field. But, like, why did Mahomes think to look there? It's because Mahomes just sees the whole field so well. And, I don't know. I don't know why he thought to look there, but it worked out. So give him a lot of credit for it. And also heading over here, I said we got to praise this offensive coaching staff. This can't be what was intentional, right? I've never seen this before. So let's get through it. It's 4th down and goal, and you see it's kind of set up as though it's a pick play where you have Kelsey running a route that's going to, on the screen it looks further down the field than it actually is. It won't be more than 1 yard past the line of scrimmage. Kind of, allows for the running back to potentially get open. The guy who's covering him can't get past Kelsey. But it's the running back. It's the guy in the backfield. We see pick plays all the time, especially with the Chiefs. They love those types of plays. But usually it's a wide receiver at tight end or 2 wide receivers, not the halfback. Watch how when this play begins. I mean, you're going to see that. I mean, Kareem Hunt was even chipping an edge rusher, then gets over here, and now they're running this sort of pick play. Mahomes has to make sure he gets outside the pocket to bide more time. This can't possibly have been the play design, right? Like, this had to have just been Kelsey and Kareem Hunt kind of doing this, reading this play at a certain point is what I think. But I don't know, because Kelsey runs this as though he's running a pick play from the jump. Is it possible what they did was they were, they had a different play design, but if that doesn't work, then they have hey, Mahomes is so good at getting outside the pocket, let's run another play design later on in the play that's going to take too long to develop, but like Mahomes can make this work? I don't know. However, Mahomes is going to keep going outside the pocket, eventually flips it to Kareem Hunt. I mean, again, bad communication by the Commanders where one player thought that they were switching, the other player did not. Because of that, 2 end up on Kelsey, none on Hunt. So, not great defense as well, but like, that's crazy offense. Also, this one, it's going to be, so one thing worth noting is you see the way that the Commanders are going to be, showing as though they're rushing the passer. Several players who could be rushing the passer here. However, when this play begins, notice how Frankie Louvu, who is lined up on the edge, is dropping back into coverage, which, okay, that makes sense. He's an off-ball linebacker. But then you have right there, Javon Kinlaw, who is an interior defensive lineman, is now off the edge, and you've essentially screwed this play. It's 2nd and 17. I don't know why you're doing this, especially in a situation where to have a chance in this game, you need a stop. What is Mahomes going to do if you have an interior defensive lineman who has to contain him? Well, he's going to get outside the pocket. Like, that's just not going to work. That's just not smart football. Again, you have to understand rules are different when you're playing Patrick Mahomes. Like, you can't treat him like you treat Kirk Cousins. It's just not going to work. What do you think Mahomes is going to do? Watch him throw the ball down the field. I mean, of course, again, someone's going to get open if you give him this much time, especially against the secondary that hasn't covered well this season. So, again, I'm being critical of the Commanders' defense, but it's in part because Mahomes just has so many great traits that, like, you just have to know how to play him to some degree. And again, even when you try to play him the right way, it doesn't work out. But if you let him open up the offense, he will take advantage. So really good stuff here by Kansas City. They're back. They're all the way back. I mean, we can sit here and say, well, they had some rough games early on, and they did. Started off 0-2, 3 losses on the season. That's 3 more times than the Chiefs lost last season. But the biggest difference is just the offensive improvement. They were not a bad offense last year. They were top 10 in points per drive, but this year they're 2nd in points per drive, only behind the Colts right now. So that just goes to show what they're doing so effectively. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.